Welcome to This Is How We Create, a show that digs deeper into the creative life of contemporary artists of color. Discover what feeds their creativity and how they found or are finding their artistic voice. Through these intimate and candid conversations, you'll gain insights into the lives of creative professionals of color that are hard to find anywhere else. Welcome back to This Is How We Create. My name is Martine Severin, your host, and today we are talking all about our hiring series. So in part one of our series, we talked about how do you know when you need to hire someone? How do you know when you're ready? In part two, we talked about screening, interviews, and all of that stuff. Part three was about onboarding. And so today I want to talk about what happens when you have to let someone go. And let's start with me talking about an expensive lesson when I knew by like week 3 or 4, they weren't going to make it, but then I didn't let them go until 6 months in. The time that I actually spent letting that person linger in cost me energy, it cost me focus, and honestly, it cost me a piece of my confidence as a leader. So let me tell you what I learned and what I do differently now. So I do have a 6-month rule. So if I know that someone fundamentally isn't the right fit, I act fast, not 6 months more, not another performance improvement plan. At 6 months, it's time to make a clear decision because 6 months is just enough time to know where someone gets it, if they want it, and if they have the capacity to do it. It's enough time to see if they care about the quality of the work that you do. And it's enough time to know if their values align with your own values and the values of your creative studio. And if the answer at 6 months is a no, and if you're still micromanaging at 6 months, if you're still redoing their work, if you're still feeling a hum of resentment, more time just simply isn't going to fix any of those things. It really isn't. But what if you think that person still needs coaching? Okay, so let's talk about when to coach. I find that coaching works when the issue is really skill-based and the person is willing and really eager to improve. Here are some examples for you. They care really deeply about the work and they're really great about asking questions. They take feedback really well, but they're still learning your system. That, my friend, that's so coachable, right? You're going to give them more time and you're going to give them resources and then you're going to give them feedback. Or if they're great at 80% of the role, but they're still struggling with just one specific area, well, that's also coachable because you can address the gap directly. You can set clear expectations and see whether or not there are improvement. But here's what coachable looks like in practice instead of just theory. They own their mistakes instead of making excuses. They implement feedback really quickly. They ask clarifying questions and they're self-aware about where they're struggling. And they want to do better. The person I kept on for way too long, none of those things really applied. They made excuses. They didn't implement feedback. Or if they did, it lasted like a month before they slid back. They didn't ask questions because they didn't think, well, I don't know. I can't assume what they didn't think, but I just wasn't seeing improvements. What I thought was coachable, but if you keep coaching, that's really more of a values misalignment. So then this brings us to when you have to cut loose. You have to let them go with grace when someone doesn't actually seem to want to improve. I say seem because we don't know what's going on in people's head, right? So this includes though, they don't care about the quality of the work that you do and coaching hasn't changed what they're doing, or they're constantly missing deadlines or making careless mistakes despite coaching, right? They're defensive when you give them feedback and they blame others instead of taking ownership of whatever is going wrong. If you're spending more time managing them than you would spend doing the work yourself, well, here's the question that my business coach asks that really helps me rethink everything. So he says, is this person making your business better or just different? If they're making it better, even incrementally better, well, that's really worth coaching, right? Because you're getting better slowly but surely. If they're just making it different and not in a good way, it's time to let them go with grace. So before I let anyone go, I do have 3 clear conversations. These are not casual mentions, but really sit down and documented conversations. The first conversation is a heads up. So you could say something like, I've noticed that X isn't working. Here's specifically what I need to see change. Here's the timeline, and here's what success looks like. You really want to be more specific here, and you want to send them this message. You can't say something like, you need to be more detail-oriented. Instead, you might say, I need client emails to be error-free before they go out. That means no typos, no formatting issues, and all requested information have to be included. Then we have a midpoint check 2 or 4 weeks later. This is where I say, here's what I'm seeing improve, and here's where I still need to see change. And we're at the halfway point of doing this. Are you confident that you can get there? And this is where you read between the lines. If they're defensive or making excuses, then you have your answer. So the third conversation I have is basically about the decision. About 2 to 4 weeks after that, then I say, well, here's where we are. Based on what we discussed, this is either working or it's not working. Then what you're going to say. If it's working, well, that's great. If it's not, this is when you have to really make the call. This whole 3 conversations, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks total, not 6 months as I did before. Now, let's talk about how to actually have the firing conversation. And this is the part where I was afraid of most, which is why I waited so long. These are difficult conversations, but this is what I've learned. And so I'm so pleased to be sharing it with you. Clarity is really kindness because the conversation, it doesn't need to be really emotional. But what I like to start off with is to say when I call the person, I book a meeting with them. And at the start of the meeting, the first thing I say, this is going to be a difficult conversation, but I just want to let you know ahead of time so that at the end, we know how we're going to move forward. Then I say, this isn't working. We've had several conversations about topic X, right? Or whatever the issue is. And I am not seeing the change we need to see. Today will be your last day. I'll pay you through X amount of date. And here's what transition will look like. That's it. You don't need to over justify or explain. You definitely don't need to soften it. This is so hard for me. Or I really hate doing this. Well, if you do say that, well, sometimes that makes it more about you and not about them. So you want to be direct, you want to be clear, and you want to be done, and you want to follow up with an email. When I finally let that person go after a year, you know what it felt like? Oh my gosh, I felt so much relief, immediate relief, not overwhelming relief. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel sad. I just felt relief because I had been carrying that weight and misalignment for months. And then there's that gnawing sense of feeling taken advantage of because the person isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And we all know that cash flow as a freelancer is tough, right? So you're paying someone and they're not living up to the fullness of what's in their job description. And it's just all is bad. It's bad for everybody. But I do wish someone had told me this one part. And this one part is that letting someone go isn't really a failure of leadership thing. It actually is really great leadership because keeping someone on who isn't right, that is failure because that means you are not acting in the best interest of yourself, nor in the best interest of your business and what you're trying to do. because there is a cost to waiting. The extra months that I spent waiting, it cost me time, it cost me energy, and it cost me trust in myself. Every day I didn't act. Every day I was telling myself that, I was avoiding discomfort, honestly, and that discomfort was more important than protecting my work. I was not protecting my work, and my work deserved better than that. And, I think your work deserves better than that too. So because of this, I now have a new rule, right? My new rule is that at 3 months, I check in with myself. Is this working? Is it working with this person? Not could this work eventually, but is it working right now? And then I have another conversation with myself. If the answer is no, I act right then and there, right? One clear conversation that we have, I don't elaborate. I just say, this isn't the right fit, and here's what's going to happen next. And after 3 months, it feels fast. It might even feel harsh, but it's actually a lot kinder to let someone know things aren't working, and it's kind to you. Because the truth of the matter is, if it's not working for you, they're feeling it. They're feeling it. They know that the role isn't quite working out. They know that they're struggling. They might be stressed, and letting go, you're doing them a favor too, because, you're letting them go with grace and letting them go find someone else who could be a really great fit. Here's a question to ask yourself. If you're sitting with someone right now, someone who's in your studio, who you've been trying to coach, and you've been trying to coach this person, and you're trying to fix everything, you're trying to make it work. Here's a question to ask yourself. Am I coaching because I believe they can improve, or am I coaching because I'm afraid to fire them? Ouch. Ouch. So you want to be honest, because the answer will tell you what to do next. After I let that person go, I hired someone who really shared my values, somebody who cared about quality, who asked thoughtful questions and implemented feedback immediately. And you know what? Working with them showed me how much energy I'd been wasting trying to make the wrong person fit. The right hire will give you so much energy, and the wrong hire will drain it. So trust yourself and act. Act quickly. Act in 3 months, act in 6 months, have the 3 conversations and make the hard call. Your creative vision is really worth protecting, and sometimes protection means that you have to let people go. That's all I have for you. Thank you so much for staying with us for all 4 parts of this series. And so I hope that's it. That's all. Thank you for sticking with me through this series. I hope that these lessons have saved you some heartache, or they will save you some heartache, because, they cost me a lot to learn, and now I'm passing it on to you, friend. I will see you next week on our next episode. Hi there. I have a quick favor to ask you before you go. If you're loving the show, would you mind taking a quick second to leave us a 5-star review on your favorite go-to podcast app? Here's the thing. Those reviews are like magic fairy dust. They help other creatives of color discover our show and tap into their own artistic superpowers. While you're at it, why not subscribe to our Substack newsletter, Creative Matters? Creative Matters is like a weekly dose of inspiration delivered straight to your inbox. You can find the link to subscribe in the show notes. All right, that's all that I have for you today. I can't wait to see you on the next episode. Bye.